Right now, along the shrinking edges of Lake Mead, something unprecedented is unfolding. Heavy machinery roars without pause. Massive drill rigs, some the size of small buildings, are positioned along newly exposed sections of cracked earth that, just years ago, were submerged deep underwater. The lake is receding at an alarming pace, and what it's revealing is triggering a response that feels urgent. It's almost desperate. Workers in high-visibility gear move with intensity, shouting over the grinding noise of metal cutting into rock. Dust clouds rise into the dry desert air as drills punch downward, deeper and deeper beneath the lakebed. This isn't exploratory drilling. This is targeted, precise, coordinated, and it's happening fast. From a distance, it looks like a full-scale industrial invasion. Convoys of trucks arrive hourly, carrying pipes, reinforced casing, and equipment designed for extreme depth operations. Security around the area is tight, far tighter than what you'd expect for a standard infrastructure project. Roads leading to key drilling zones are restricted. Drones are reportedly being intercepted.
Something about this operation is being contained.
Locals in nearby areas are starting to notice. Residents who once visited the shoreline for recreation now see something else entirely barren. Cracked landscape filled with machines tearing into the ground. Many are asking the same question. Why now? Why this sudden escalation? And then there's the timing. The water level in Lake Mead has been dropping for years, but this level of response has never been seen before. Not when the lake hit previous lows. Not when warnings were issued. But now suddenly, it's different. Engineers are reportedly working around the clock, in shifts that never stop. Floodlights illuminate the site even in the dead of night, turning the desert into a 24-hour operation zone. Whatever they're trying to retore or prevent cannot wait, because beneath this drying lake, something has changed. And whatever it is, it's forcing an entire city, Las Vegas, to act like time is running out.
Oh.
The silence doesn't last. Within hours of footage leaking online, showing the massive drilling operations beneath, Lake Mead officials are forced to respond. But what they say only raises more questions. A hastily arranged press conference appears on local channels in Las Vegas. The tone is controlled, but tense. Behind the podium, Water Authority, representatives, engineers, and state officials stand shoulder to shoulder, their expressions tight, rehearsed. They call it a preventative infrastructure project. They insist the drilling is part of a long-planned contingency effort designed to secure water access as lake levels continue to drop. They mention intake optimization, deep water access points, and supply. Stabilization, but something doesn't add up. Because the scale of what's happening outside doesn't match the calm language being used inside. Reporters press harder. One question cuts through the room. Why now? Why initiate such an aggressive operation at this exact moment? There's a pause. And then carefully, one engineer steps forward. His voice is steady, but the words carry weight. He admits that recent data has accelerated timelines, that conditions beneath the lake have become less predictable, that waiting is no longer an option. That's when the mood shifts. Behind the scenes, sources begin to speak anonymously. What they reveal is far more alarming than the official narrative. They describe sudden structural concerns deep beneath the lakebed zones, where sediment has become unstable, where pressure changes are behaving unpredictably. Some even suggest the possibility of subsurface collapse zones forming areas that could compromise the integrity of existing water intake systems. And if those systems fail, Las Vegas doesn't just lose convenience, it loses its lifeline. Nearly all of the city's water depends on access points within Lake Mead. If those intakes are exposed, damaged, or cut off entirely, millions of people could be left without a reliable water supply almost overnight. Officials don't confirm this directly, but they don't deny it either. Instead, they double down on urgency. Urgency funding is approved within hours. Federal agencies are reportedly being brought in. Equipment shipments are fast-tracked. The drilling zones expand. And then comes the statement that changes everything. This operation is critical to maintaining continuous water access under evolving conditions, not future conditions. It's not theoretical risks, evolving conditions. Right now. Which means whatever is happening beneath Lake Mead It's no longer a distant threat. It's already in motion. This didn't start today. Right. What's happening right now beneath Lake Mead has been building for years, quietly, steadily, almost invisibly. And the most unsettling part? The warning signs were there all along. For over 2 decades, the waterline has been retreating, exposing what locals now call the bathtub ring, a stark white band etched into the canyon walls, marking just how far the lake has fallen. But beneath that visible drop, something far more dangerous has been unfolding out of sight. As water levels decline, pressure inside the lakebed changes. Layers of sediment that were once compressed under millions of tons of water are now shifting, drying, cracking. What was stable is becoming fragile. Internal reports, some dating back years, flagged these risks. Engineers warned that falling water levels could expose critical intake structures. They warned that sediment movement could destabilize the ground around those systems. They warned that if certain thresholds were crossed, access to water could become unreliable. But those thresholds kept being pushed further and further. At first, it was gradual. Few feet lost each year. Manageable. Predictable. Officials reassured the public that contingency plans were in place. New intake tunnels were constructed deeper into the lake. Redundancies were added. On paper, everything was under control. But nature didn't follow the plan. Recent data only now coming to light shows a sharp acceleration. Decline is no longer slow. It's dropping faster than projected models ever anticipated. And with that drop comes something even more dangerous: instability. Satellite scans and sonar readings have reportedly detected irregularities beneath the lake floor, pockets where sediment density has changed abruptly. Areas where the ground is no longer behaving like solid support, but something closer to shifting layers, almost like hollow zones. And that's where the real fear begins. Because if those zones expand or worse, collapse, they could damage the very systems Las Vegas depends on to survive. Intake pipes could be exposed. Structural supports could weaken. Entire sections of the underwater infrastructure could become unusable. There are even unconfirmed reports of minor subsurface shifts already occurring, small enough to go unnoticed by the public, but significant enough to trigger alarms among engineers monitoring the system. And yet none of this was made public. Not when the early warnings appeared. Not when the models started diverging. Not even when the first signs of instability were detected. Until now. Because the drilling we're seeing today isn't just preparation, it's a response to something that may have already begun. And if the warning signs were ignored for too long, then what's happening beneath Lake Mead might not be preventable anymore. Now, the situation is escalating. What began as aggressive drilling beneath Lake Mead is rapidly transforming into something far more urgent: a full-scale race against collapse. And for the first time, insiders are admitting it. They are no longer trying to prepare for a worst-case scenario. They're trying to stay ahead of it. Because the nightmare isn't just that the lake runs dry. It's what happens before that. As water levels continue to fall, the remaining supply is being pulled from deeper, narrower zones. That creates uneven pressure across the lakebed areas, where the ground is forced to support weight it was never meant to handle alone. Engineers are now watching these zones in real time, tracking subtle shifts that could signal something catastrophic: a sudden subsurface collapse. If even one major section beneath the intake systems gives way, the consequences would be immediate. Pipes could fracture. Sediment could flood critical tunnels. Access points carefully engineered over decades could be buried or rendered useless in a matter of minutes. And there's no backup lake. For Las Vegas, this is the only source. That's why the drilling has intensified. Crews aren't just digging, they're trying to reach deeper, more stable layers beneath the unstable zones. The goal is to create emergency access routes, new pathways to water that can bypass whatever is failing above. But the deeper they go, the more unpredictable it becomes. Conditions underground are shifting faster than expected. Reports suggest temperature variations, pressure inconsistencies, even unexpected resistance in areas that were previously mapped as stable. It's as if the entire structure beneath the lake is changing in real time. And time is exactly what they don't have. Every hour the water drops further. Every hour stress increases. Every hour brings the system closer to a tipping point no one fully understands. Emergency protocols are quietly being updated. Contingency plans, once theoretical, now being activated in phases. Additional crews are being brought in. Equipment is being pushed to its limits, because if this race is lost, the collapse won't be gradual, it will be sudden. And when it happens, Las Vegas won't get days to react. It may not even get hours. For the people living in Las Vegas, this is no longer a distant threat buried beneath Lake Mead. It's starting to feel real. Across the city, something subtle is shifting. Grocery stores are seeing unusual spikes in bottled water purchases. Hardware shops report a surge in people buying storage containers, filters, anything that can hold or stretch what they have. No official evacuation has been announced, but behavior is changing, quietly, rapidly, in residential neighborhoods. Conversations are different now. Neighbors who barely spoke before are suddenly comparing notes. Have you heard what's happening at the lake? Is it true the water levels are dropping faster? What if the supply stops? No one has clear answers. Parents are watching their children play, but there's a tension in the background and unspoken fear. Schools haven't closed, businesses are still open, the lights are still on. But beneath that normal surface, uncertainty is growing. For workers directly tied to the lake, the pressure is even more intense. Some of the drilling crews have started speaking anonymously. They describe conditions that are becoming harder to manage: equipment overheating, ground resistance changing without warning, sections of drilling sites that feel unstable underfoot. One worker describes it as digging into something that doesn't want to stay still. Another says the pace has doubled in just days. Longer shifts, fewer breaks, constant push to go deeper, faster, because they know what's at stake. If the water system fails, this city built in the middle of the desert has nowhere else to turn. Hospitals are quietly reviewing emergency water protocols. Hotels, the backbone of Las Vegas's economy, are beginning to assess how long they could operate under limited supply conditions. Behind the scenes, contingency plans are being drafted, revised, and redrafted again. And then there are the most vulnerable: elderly residents, low-income families, people who don't have the means to stockpile or relocate. For them, even a short disruption could become life-threatening. But no one is telling them to leave. Not yet, because officially everything is still under control, but unofficially, the fear is spreading faster than the facts, because deep down, people can sense it. Whatever is happening beneath Lake Mead isn't just an engineering problem anymore. It's a countdown. And everyone in Las Vegas is now living on the edge of it. Now, the strain is no longer hidden. Across Las Vegas, critical systems are starting to show signs of stress, and it's happening faster than officials anticipated. What was once a contained operation beneath Lake Mead is beginning to ripple outward, affecting the very infrastructure that keeps the city alive. Water pressure fluctuations are being reported in multiple across the percent. It's subtle, slightly weaker flow from taps, brief interruptions that last only minutes. But then the reports increase. Entire blocks experience sudden drops. Some areas lose pressure completely before it returns without explanation. Officials call it temporary instability. But internally, it's being treated as a warning. Because the system feeding Las Vegas is highly sensitive, relies on a precise balance in take depth, pressure control, distribution timing, and now that balance is being disrupted. Pumping stations are working harder than ever, pushing water from deeper and more difficult access points. This increased demand is putting enormous strain on equipment that was never designed for continuous extreme operation. Maintenance crews are being dispatched non-stop, patching issues as they appear. But the problems aren't isolated. Power consumption is spiking. The deeper the water is pulled from Lake Mead, the more energy it requires. Electrical grids already under pressure from rising temperatures and heavy usage are beginning to feel the load. There are brief outages reported in some districts, nothing widespread yet, but enough to raise alarms. Emergency services are now on standby. Backup generators are being tested or being activated quietly. Without public announcements, hospitals are increasing water reserves. Fire departments are reviewing worst-case scenarios. What happens if hydrants lose pressure during an emergency? Because in a city like Las Vegas, where every system depends on another, failure doesn't stay contained. Cascades. Water issues affect power. Power issues affect communication. Communication breakdowns affect response times. And suddenly, a single point of failure beneath Lake Mead starts to threaten everything above it. And the most dangerous part? This is still the early stage. Because if the drilling operation doesn't stabilize access soon, these minor failures won't stay minor for long. They will escalate fast. The city holds its breath, even as crews dig deeper beneath Lake Mead. Even as emergency systems strain to keep the taps flowing in Las Vegas, there's a growing unease among experts. This might not be enough. What's happening below the lakebed isn't just instability, it's a warning of something far bigger, something no plan can fully contain. Engineers whisper about hidden voids forming under massive sections of the lake, pockets that could collapse without warning. One slip, one sudden shift, could fracture intake tunnels, sever pipelines, cut the city's water supply in a single catastrophic event. And unlike previous crises, there's no backup lake to turn to. Not one drop of outside water is ready to replace what's here. Meanwhile, satellite imagery shows cracks widening along the lake bed. Sensors buried in sediment are detecting tremors too small for the public to feel, but too significant for scientists to ignore. These readings suggest the earth beneath the water is slowly rearranging itself, and every shift makes existing tunnels and drilling efforts more dangerous. Across the city, tension mounts. Families have begun rationing water in secret, unsure if supply will last the week, the day, or even hours. Workers at the drilling sites push forward with exhaustion etched into their faces, knowing any delay could tip the scales toward disaster. And city officials, constrained by optics and politics, release statements meant to combat, not inform the public. The fear is palpable. For the first time, everyone realizes that Las Vegas is living on borrowed time. The lake that has sustained life, commerce, and millions of residents could fail suddenly, leaving nothing but a cracked desert basin and parched streets. And yet nobody knows exactly when or if it will happen. Because beneath the calm surface of Lake Mead, the earth is changing in ways that may be unstoppable. Scientists admit privately, this could be the first domino in a chain reaction. If the lakebed collapses, the damage may extend far beyond the city. Neighboring communities, power grids, and water systems could all feel the shock. The drills may buy time, but time is uncertain. Las Vegas waits. The desert holds its breath. Beneath it all, the silent, shifting lakebed reminds everyone that nature doesn't negotiate. And disaster doesn't send warnings, only consequences. The question now isn't if the city can survive. It's how long it can, and what comes next may be worse than anyone has imagined.